Leeds. What is happening? Welcome to Series 6 of Working Hours, an oral history podcast about a place called Leeds, a time called now, and an activity called work. Working Hours aims to record 200 loiners, that's people from Leeds, over the first half of the most important decade in the history of the human species, and ask them about what they do all day and hear how they feel about it. My name is Simon, and this is all my fault. My mission here is to try to map out what my city, Leeds, a city that has declared a climate emergency, did during humanity's biggest emergency. On Working Hours, we hear how loiners have, are, and will be coping with our multiple and expanding crises during their day-to-day working hours. To tell this story, I need loiners like you, dear listener. I need people in Leeds or people from Leeds to come on this podcast and tell me about what they do all day and let me record how this decade affects us. Thank you for listening to this episode. What did you want to be when you grew up?
So I think when I was a little kid, there was two options available to me. They were never available to me, but the two options that really jumped out was I either wanted to be a vet or play for Liverpool.
All right, yep.
And they were very clear for most of my childhood. I don't know there was ever a preference.
Yeah.
But it was always those two.
So when were you disabused of that? Like, how far did you take them? Was it just until you got to sort of choosing your courses?
I mean, if I'm honest, I was still having dreams in my mid-20s that I'd be discovered playing football in the street. Probably by the time high school came, and you kind of, it all feels a little bit more serious. Yeah. Kind of making choices that affect.
Yeah, and you have to start being pragmatic.
Yeah, you have to be pragmatic about what subjects are important to you and that sort of stuff.
Yes. Well, that's not realistic for you. You should think of something else.
Yeah.
You're listening to Series 6, Episode 24, and to my guest, Emlyn Hagan. This is another in-person recording recorded on the 5th of August, 2025. Hello, colleagues. Emlyn Hagan was born in Liverpool and has lived in Leeds for nearly 28 years. Leaving school at 16, Emlyn completed an apprenticeship with Ford Motor Company in Liverpool, following which he worked as an electrician control specialist. In 1994, he took voluntary redundancy and moved to Ware in Hertfordshire to work as an electrical technician in a pharmaceutical factory. A brief spell as a technical support manager in Newcastle followed before he moved to Leeds to complete a 4-year BSc in Business Information Systems. In year 3 of his degree, Emlyn found a placement with a corporate insolvency data software company, which led to a permanent position as a data and development manager. Emlyn left this position due to a period of poor mental health following years of managing depression, anxiety, social phobia, and body dysmorphia. He took a year or so off work and during this time decided that he no longer wanted to work in the private sector or full-time. Emlyn then found employment with Mencap Pathway, first as a job coach, moving up to being a senior education and employment coordinator by the time he left. Emlyn's next step came as a result of seeing an advert for an employment specialist for Community Links / Leeds Mind. Emlyn has worked for Leeds Mind for around 16 and a half years in a variety of roles: employment specialist, job retention specialist, employment peer support coordinator, and since 2022 has been the lived experience and peer support team leader. His current role involves managing a variety of lived experience projects within the charity, and this gives him an environment where he can make a difference and be his authentic self. Emlyn's had a variety of part-time jobs or additional jobs over the years, including running market stalls, driving a delivery van for a flower shop, managing a charity shop, and helping to run a CIC. Alongside working for Leeds Mind, Emlyn manages his own business, Emlyn Hagan Coaching and Change, which offers therapeutic coaching with a focus on sessions in nature for people wanting to make changes in their life. He lives with his partner Chris and their cat Rita. Right, let's do this. Episode 179 of Working Hours with Emlyn Hagan. So, should we jump straight into what you're doing now?
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is it you're doing now then?
So at the moment, there's a few things that I do really. So I work 3 days a week for Leeds Mind as a lived experience and peer support team leader.
Okay.
Managing a variety of projects that put lived experience and mental health struggles at their core. I also run my own business as a therapeutic change coach.
Okay.
So working with people one-to-one around kind of, negative emotions, feeling stuck, development needs, that sort of stuff. And a big part of that, partly for my own benefit really, is coaching in nature.
Yeah.
And then I'm also involved in a social enterprise where we put events on, run stages at festivals and do kind of green energy, educational stuff.
Nice. So, I mean, to me, that sounds like the most fun one. But, that's my particular biases. But, I mean, you've got a broad variety there of things, but you can see the linkage between them all. So let's jump straight into how you got into it. So how did all that come about?
So I suppose the easiest one to answer is that the sort of events, energy stuff came about through DJing. So meeting people through DJing who were running a bike-powered stage at Hyde Park Unity Day in Leeds.
All right.
So that's the easy one. Then I suppose the story's similar with the other two jobs, really, in that I guess my story into working in mental health relates back to my own mental health struggles, really. So I worked in IT. I was part owner of an IT business, selling corporate insolvency data software. And alongside that, we also did like an online guide to Leeds that I managed. And then I became quite unwell and took some time off work. And while I was off, I decided that I don't ever want to work in the private sector again because it doesn't suit me. Ethically or behaviourally, it's not right for me.
Yeah.
And I also decided I don't ever want to have a full-time job again because the job I'd left, I was doing 60, 70 hours a week, thousands of miles of driving per month.
Yeah.
And I just thought that I don't know if this balance is right. I'm earning more money than I've ever had.
Yeah.
But I need that money to do loads of stuff that stops me becoming unwell.
Yeah.
So over that period of not working, I did some volunteering and I decided, right, what I need to look for is a job with a charity.
Yeah.
And I found a job with Mencap Pathway as a job coach, working with people with what was then described as learning difficulties. So people who were in employment, supporting them to kind of, perform in their job, really.
Which will include, for any listener who's just thinking learning difficulties and imagining a specific thing, that's a huge range because things like dyslexia and,
it was kind of dyslexia, dyspraxia, autistic people. So I did that for a little while, and again, travel became a thing with that. I was covering the whole of Yorkshire and Humber and doing a lot of driving, and I was at a place in my own mental health recovery that when I spotted a job that came up supporting people in employment who were struggling with their mental health, but one of the desirable criteria was personal experience of mental health struggles. I just thought, okay, that might be good for me to apply for that, even if I don't get it. Yeah. To be able to talk about my own mental health. Yeah. There might be a benefit there.
Both in the application and if you get an interview.
Yeah. So I went to that kind of, and this probably helped me really, not being someone who's great at interviews, that the fact that the pressure was off. Yeah. So I was just doing because it would be good for me to do it. Yeah. I was able to talk about my own mental health struggles and support needs, and I got offered the job. Yeah. And that was originally with Community Links. It was with Community Links, but subcontracted to Leeds Mind. And then that was 16 and a half years ago, maybe. Yeah. Wow. So over that time, I've kind of had various jobs at Leeds Mind. Yeah. Which has took me to where I'm at now. With the coaching, that's a similar thing, really, in that for my own development, my own recovery, I did some training. And the training was great. It made a massive difference to me. So I did the next stage of the training, and it was great. So I did the next stage of the training. Next thing you know, making plans to become self-employed as a coach. And it was never, it doesn't feel like it was ever a conscious decision. It just kind of happened.
So how did you start that? So I'm thinking here, sort of first client, was it a kind of, you worked with someone as a bit of a favour and see how that worked out, or did you sort of go, right, I'm going to set up a business? And
no, there was a long time, years of doing it and not getting paid for it.
Yeah.
You know, so for my training, needing to get experience of doing some of the things I was learning. So saying to all sorts of mates, I can help you with that. I can help you with that. And as I say, that lasted 3 years or something. And then eventually I'd said to people, well, you don't need to pay me, but you could give me a donation if you want, to pay as you feel. And I did that for a little bit. And then eventually I thought, oh, hold on a minute, this is actually, there's the scope here for this to be a business. And then when my most recent, the job I'm in now, came up, it was less hours than I was doing already. And my partner and I worked out that, you know, because it was an increased salary, but less hours, I'd be £100 a month worse off.
Yeah.
All I had to do was do a bit of coaching.
Yeah.
And I'm no worse off.
Yeah.
And I've got an extra day a week and an extra day a week of headspace to deal with the coaching business.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and it's, I think as well, you know, the sort of thing of, you know, you're taking the time off and you're volunteering and so on, and it's that sort of thing of, I think it did kind of come up in the interview yesterday, but it was laziness is what I'm thinking of. So a lot of the time people are kind of like, oh, you know, you're kind of copping out and you're being lazy, and it's like, it's this, as you've just demonstrated, you've got 3 roles, you've got your own business. It's like, it's not a matter of laziness.
No.
And it's that thing of, you know, because it could easily, like, I have spent a lot of time during this project, quite literally, sitting on my backside. But that's like lack of motivation for various reasons. But at the same time, I've also done 50-hour weeks for several months to try and pay for this thing. So it's not a laziness problem. It's a motivation problem. And I know that if I went into an office, you know, like if I was doing this and I was going to an office and it was for someone else, it would have all been done. But because I'm doing it for myself, and the why is always there of like, why bother? You know, like who's listening to it? Is it doing what you want it to do? And so as I said in my email to you the other day, it was like, I'm having a real struggle with it. But I feel like now that I've gone, right, 200, nice round number, actually achievable now. Sign it off. Because this whole like 1,000 number that was kind of a joke number to have a smart target and, you know, something that people could get behind of like, 1,000 people, that's interesting, and, you know, that sounds like a good challenge. Too much of a challenge. But but my mind is coming back just from that, knowing that there's an out, like there's a door open, and like, it's really taking the pressure off. So I just wanted to throw that in there. But it's that thing of your body and your mind, they're reacting to stuff for a reason. It's telling you stuff.
And it's interesting because I'll often talk to, you know, in me Leeds Mind role, I manage staff, and, you know, the kind of part of the managing staff is kind of coaching, really, you know. So in that and in my coaching role, you know, that I'll talk to people a lot about, lots of us have a real issue with doing nothing. Especially if you're someone who's had struggles with their mental health over the years and you've had time off work. There's some, you know, part of the way you work is driven by guilt about, I need to prove that I can achieve. But, you know, I
wasn't in jail, I wasn't being lazy, I'm doing this.
I couldn't do it, you know. But I'll kind of say to people that it's okay to do nothing, because it's about kind of reframing what doing nothing means. If you need once every couple of weeks to spend a day lying on the sofa, stroking the cat and watching your favourite films, it's not doing nothing, it's an act of self-care. So, you know, I think one of the things that probably in the past 15 years I've got loads better at is I know that at times things get a bit too much for me.
Yeah.
I have to take time out.
Yeah.
And I have to, have those days where it looks like I'm doing nothing at all and I'm not being productive, but I am being productive because what I'm doing is I'm rebuilding up my energy.
You're recharging.
Yeah. And that's what, that period after I left IT, that kind of, I think it was 18 months or so of not working, just doing a bit of volunteering. That's what was happening.
Yeah.
I was rediscovering, what do I want out of my working life?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be stuck in, I've left careers before in the past.
Yeah.
Because I've thought, I don't want to be doing this when I'm in my 50s.
Yeah.
Now I'm in my 50s, I'm glad I don't do those things,
Yeah.
So it was reassessing what I need, but also rebuilding some energy,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is, I've mentioned this multiple times on the podcast, but this obsession with productivity is, are you familiar with David Graeber?
No.
He's an American anarchist, academic and anthropologist. Really, really interesting guy. It's unfortunately passed now. But he talks about, you make a cup once, you wash it 1,000 times. It's most work is maintenance. Yeah. It's not production. And this obsession with production and being productive and, and it's too much because you're always thinking about, and like you say, the guilt, because you're always thinking about, I should be making, I should be doing, I should be, to the point where it's like, we've monetized our hobbies. So there's no reason to just sit down and do a sketch unless you're like, oh, well, I've got to turn it into a post.
What you're doing it for, Yeah.
Like, because I want to, because of, my mind is like, I want to doodle for a bit or whatever. Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So what we'll do, I mean, do you want to go into a bit more detail about any of the specific roles a bit more, or do you want to jump into the next question?
Well, I suppose that I think the Leeds Mind role's quite interesting in that, that as I say, I've done various jobs at Leeds Mind, frontline work and kind of management work, and then for the past, I think it's 3.5 years now, I've been in this role. So that over that time, I've managed a whole range of different projects. At the moment, I manage 3 different projects. I manage an older people's befriending service.
Oh, cool.
So that's kind of a service for over 50s in Leeds who are socially isolated and lonely and struggle with their mental health. So, providing them with a staff member or a volunteer to meet with them weekly or fortnightly for up to 6 months to kind of, support them to re-engage with their community a wee bit and rebuild their lives a bit, really. So, we've had some great results in that project. And it, I think as a manager, it's really easy to kind of be like, what we're looking for is grand kind of progress. When in reality, the person really early on in the project who wanted to go to the supermarket and buy some lemon sorbet because she'd not done that for 2 years, or the lady who wanted to go to Murgatroyd's for fish and chips for the first time in 8 months. That's because that's people getting back to their real life.
Yeah,
that feels really powerful, and that's a great team and great volunteers that make a massive difference to people. A massive difference to people. So I've got that one, and then there's another heading of a couple of projects that is peer support training. So one of them is we have some funding through public health to offer frontline staff some free training around self-harm. So that's training that we kind of has put lived experience at its core. So we had lots of conversations with people who self-harm and people who work with people who self-harm, the families and friends of people who self-harm. And we got that real sort of personal experience and formed it into a series of training workshops that we then offer for free. So like initially it was frontline staff within the criminal justice system, because it came from some research that showed that the experiences of people who self-harm within the criminal justice system weren't very good a lot of the time. And then we're now offering that to a wider sort of frontline staff, and that feels really great because what we've been able to do, because the facilitators have also got a history of self-harming as well, so people are able to talk about for me, this is how I self-harm, or I have self-harmed. And we've been able to really kind of spread that message that, you know, for lots of people, they see self-harm as, you know, the real gory stuff. But there's lots of self-harming behaviour that isn't kind of cutting. And self-injury, you know, there's lots of decisions that people make. You know, I know for me that there was kind of self-harm behaviour in the past that was alcohol-based.
Yeah, cigarettes.
Or cigarettes, you know, that people smoking cigarettes, drug use for people.
Yeah.
For me, there was lots of like punching myself in the head, that sort of stuff. You know, when feeling completely overwhelmed.
Yeah.
You know, so the feedback we get on that is really, really great around people seeing that there's a whole spectrum of what self-harm is, and people getting to understand, or develop a deeper understanding, I guess, of what support needs people really have in that situation. So that's one of the sides of the training. The other side is, so at Leeds Mind, we've got like, that's 25 plus years experience now of running services that put lived experience at their heart. We call them peer support services. Yeah. So people with that personal experience supporting other people. Yeah. So over that time, you know, we've run one-to-one support, group support for people who are feeling suicidal, support for people who self-harm, tons of it really. You know, when we get new staff in or volunteers in, we need to train them to do the work, to run groups, to hold the space in a group, that sort of stuff. And that, you know, what we've done is develop this training program essentially. And in you know, over the years we've gone out and we've offered that training to other organisations. The past couple of years we've really focused on that you know, that if we want to promote this idea of lived experience has value in the workplace. Yeah. So, you know, we're getting out there and we're offering training to organisations that provide support, organisations that, you know, we're training volunteers, staff, peer mentors who are like students, that sort of stuff. You know, and that feels really impactful, because I think what the research shows is that lived experience positively used in the workplace can have real value, you know. So they're the three projects I manage, but, you know, on a day-to-day basis, it's, you know, a mixture of like managing, you know, working with spreadsheets, dealing with inquiries, you know, kind of interacting with funders. Most importantly for me, managing staff, so being available for staff, you know, because it feels like, you know, if staff send me a little message saying, have you got 5 minutes? It's really easy to not prioritise that, but inevitably that's going to make their day worse. Yeah. If they're then sat on something that in a 5-minute conversation, we can just
sort
make
out.
it not seem like an issue, you know. So I think that's the bit that I see as the kind of most valuable part of my role, is that the being that sort of source of second opinion, support, encouragement, coaching to the people I manage. And there's a little bit of I have a little bit of interaction with the people we support, and then, you know, bits of sort of, you know, marketing and promotion stuff.
But you've kind of got both sides covered. So, you know, when I speak properly, Simon, when I've spoken to people who've started their own businesses and, you know, they start in something that they love, and then as the business grows, they're kind of taken away from why they started it, and they have to be more operational.
Definitely,
but you've kind of covered that with the coaching, so you've always got that hands-on experience. So you've kind of you've got the practice, but you're also able to operate at that higher level where you know you can kind of affect more people and be effective. Yeah. But you're not taken away from the bit that, you know, that real feedback of like seeing a change happen, not just seeing it change on and, sheets.
You know, as I say to you, you know, that I see the managing of staff as almost like having coaching clients, really. Yeah. You know, because part of my role is to help them get the best out of themselves,
keep them stay motivated,
the best version of themselves, and see that and model kind of, you know, model that kind of positive sort of sharing of mental health struggles, that I will be open with my team. If I'm having a day where I feel anxious, I'll let them know. And I'm not asking for sympathy, or I'm just saying to them, if you need me, I'm here.
Yeah.
But you might need to remind me of stuff because I'm a little bit wobbly today because of this, or and it just strikes me as that there's a really real opportunity to model that sort of boundaried sharing of lived experience.
Yeah, because there is there's it's need to know, isn't it? So this is the way I operate. It's very James Bondy, but it is need to know, because I was terrible for oversharing because I wanted to be honest, and then you would you don't need to tell people this, Simon, or that's actively doing harm because they don't need that information, and that's so all they're thinking is, why has he told me that? And it's you need to be in that space of you need to know this, I'm in this state, but I don't need to dump everything on you and tell come to pieces or anything. This is what you need to know, thank you very much for knowing it, and now we can move on.
I consider myself, obviously I enjoy working at Leeds Mind. I've been there 16 and a half years, but there's something about it that that there's real value in my ability to be my authentic self. When I worked in IT, I used to wear the shirt and tie and all that sort of stuff, but I was always seen as a bit of an oddball because I had an allotment and composted or went to festivals, things like that, so being able to be my authentic self at work is really valuable to me and really good for my mental health. But also being in an environment, because we all know at work that, certainly in our part of Leeds Mind, that everybody's got lived experience. So we all look out for each other. So it's not unusual if you're having a bit of a rubbish day or you're a bit flat, chances are somebody will check in with you. And, if people are coming out of difficult sessions with the people we support, somebody will check in with them. So it just feels like such a supportive environment, to be in that environment where people care about each other seems, unusual maybe. Certainly in my career it's unusual.
But also it's nice, isn't it? And as well, it's that thing. So I don't know if you had this, but when I first started work, because I wanted to be in a kind of artistic environment and stuff, and very much, you'd be asked in interviews what's important to you, and it was always the people. I want to be around creative people. But the corporate sort of world, you do feel that oppression very quickly of I must conform to this, and it feels like conforming, but for people in that environment, it's not conforming, it's them being themselves. And it's that sort of mismatch of and this sort of thing is, I'm going to use this as a segue, it's this sort of thing of we're all the same and we all do the same job. You go through LinkedIn, everyone just sits in an office, or you think of going back to kind of trade union stuff of as if everyone just works in a factory, or everyone just does one job. And they did that in COVID of all right, well, everyone stay at home because everyone does unimportant stuff like politician, like we do. And it's no, people need to go out and make society work. And then they were all right, okay, these people need to still work. Oh, these people as well. And it's we're not all the same. We're not all doing the same thing.
And it's kind of interesting, isn't it? Because when I first left school, I kind of went into engineering.
Nice.
And it was very kind of regimented, and you didn't want to stand out as unusual and all that sort of stuff. And that what I would love to be able to go back and tell young me is that it's going to turn out that being a bit weird, that's where all the fun is. That's what's going to get you on in life. It's not being kind of conforming to everything all the time. And what you're really going to look forward to is a time where you live in a community where there's people from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of experiences. You're going to work in a place where that individuality and kind of authentic self is seen as really, really important.
And you don't need to be in a metropolitan cosmopolitan sort of environment for that. You can be in a very small homogenous environment, but there's still tremendous difference in everyone. We've all got different faces and fingerprints, and we are different by our very being. And
I think that there's real value in that when we talk to the the staff at work who are supporting, doing the sessions with the people we support, because you can't work with everybody in the same way.
Yeah.
It's really important that kind of support is person-centred, and it's why we co-produce services with the people we support, because what we want is as big a range of kind of points of view as possible, really.
Yeah.
And you want that support that you're providing to be right for every single person.
Yeah.
And if you just decide this is how we do support and we're going to do the support at you, it's only going to be right for a percentage of the people we support,
Yeah. And you're going to get resistance, and that, you don't have to have a defiance disorder to be someone who's like not going to put up with someone telling you what to do, because most people, but it kind of works both ways, doesn't it, really, weirdly? Because in a lot of ways, if someone just tells you to do a thing, you do it.
Yeah.
And then there's other ways in which someone tells you to do something and you're like, no.
Yeah.
And it's, and I'm not sure what the context is and how that works, but both apply.
Yeah.
It's really weird.
Yeah.
I am going to move us on to COVID, but I'm just going to make sure. I thought I'd put this on flight mode, but I'm just going to make sure because it was buzzing, sorry. And the cat trying to get in. That's the first cat we've had on the thing.
Could you hear it with the cat getting picked up on the mic?
Hopefully it is. Because we've had a few dogs on, but not many cats yet.
And it's the idea that there's people having a conversation in here and she can't access it. It's her issue.
She wants to know if I'm worthy of ignoring or getting attention.
Oh, she's a very, very friendly cat.
So let's go into COVID. Mm-hmm. So feel free to share what you want from this.
Yeah.
It's a long time. All sorts of different experiences and emotions tied up in it. What I specifically want to look at is your experience going into the lockdown, and then, was it an increase in work? Were you working like crazy? Did everything drop off and stop? Or was it just like, no, we just maintain, we've got to go through this? And then coming out the other side, wherever you want to place that, was there anything that changed permanently for you work-wise? So feel free to, use it every role that's appropriate.
Okay. So I suppose going into lockdown, from a Leeds Mind point of view, what had to happen is that everything that we did with people had to really quickly change. So, group work had to move on to online. Nobody had used Zoom before.
Yeah.
Our one-to-one support had to move online. Mm-hmm. And then, everybody was suddenly working from home. Mm-hmm. So I think for me personally, at that point, my role was I was a mental health job retention specialist.
Okay.
So I was working directly with people who were having struggles at work as a result of their mental health. So everybody that was on my caseload at the time, I spoke to them all and we had a conversation about the move from face-to-face meetings to remote meetings, and a lot of them were reluctant to do it by video call. Mm-hmm. But I kind of spoke to them a lot about, if before all this you'd have come up with a hierarchy of communication, you wouldn't go from face-to-face to phone call. You'd find something in between, so that you can still have a slightly dissociated face-to-face interaction.
Yeah, but you can still see them and read them.
You can still see their face.
Yeah.
So I think most of the people I work with were up for trying video calls. Mm-hmm. And I feel that went really well. There was some interesting experiences coming out of lockdown, and that, going and meeting somebody in face-to-face for the first time and realising that I'd only ever seen them from the shoulders up.
Yeah, and you don't know how big they are.
How they look.
No, yeah.
And
then you see people that you think are quite small because they're low in the camera, and then they're huge. And then you see other people who...
There's a lot of really interesting and funny kind of... Oh, right, okay. But I think for me, it felt like I felt like I was more able to offer a higher level of support to the people on my caseload with less consequence for me.
Because you're also, it's the travel as well, isn't it? The travel and the appointment arrangements.
And I don't know if there was something about, because I was having, obviously, the people on my caseload were struggling. Some were furloughed, some were essential workers, some were off sick anyway. Mm-hmm. But I wonder if the being in my own home environment meant that I could have a really difficult conversation and then go and stand with a cup of tea in my own backyard.
Yeah.
And kind of it just felt overnight, the work got loads easier for me.
That's really interesting.
Emotionally.
Yeah.
Now, it's also interesting that I am one of those oddballs who really enjoyed lockdown. And I absolutely
You'd be surprised how many people.
Yeah, I absolutely get for a huge amount of people it was horrible.
Yeah.
I think that the interaction between lockdown and where my anxiety was at the time, being told stay at home and potter was absolutely perfect for me. You know,
and we got some nice weather.
Yeah, and your job's going to get easier.
Yeah.
You know, that was all great for me, really. In terms of the part of Leeds Mind I work in now, as I say, all the groups went online, all the one-to-ones went online. What has come out of that, you know, so fair play to the team for kind of, you know, making that happen, really, over the course. I think the time between lockdown happening and groups starting online was like 2 or 3 weeks. So, you know, that's brilliant. That's, you know, really great work.
It was like a few days of confusion, wasn't it? A few days of what's happening? Yeah. And then people were like, right.
Yeah.
And stuff started going. I mean, you know, in the non, you know, the non-healthcare environment.
Yeah,
I mean, obviously that's a different experience. I have no idea. I've spoken to some people, but you've no idea how that was really.
Yeah. And, you know, it kind of, I think what we've taken from that, because, you know, the people really struggle. People were struggling with Zoom. Zoom just feels, for lots of people, it's just a thing now, isn't it? You know, nobody had heard of Zoom, I don't think, before COVID came along. Most people know what Zoom is now. And I think what's really interesting is that as an organisation, some of what we learned in Zoom, we've kept in place, because if you think about, let's say we're running an anxiety course, managing anxiety, it might be that it's better to do that online because that's an easier step. You go and do the managing anxiety course online from your own home rather than having to go into town to do it. Yeah. So, you know, we're still doing kind of, you know, remote appointments with people. We're still doing some courses remotely and we're back to doing the face-to-face stuff as well. The same goes for my coaching. You know, I still do, you know, remote sessions with some people. Yeah. One of the big benefits from a coaching business point of view that has a focus on coaching in nature is that lots of research happened in 2020, because it turned out when, you know, that everybody was doing their government approved daily stroll, that was really good for people. Yeah. And it was really a really good stress reliever. Yeah. You know? So, I mean, I remember having conversations with people who were finding they couldn't separate work and home when they were working from home.
I was going to ask you about that.
And I was saying to people, but there's nothing to say you can't do a morning commute. Once we're out of that more strict bit, you can get up in the morning, get dressed, walk around the block and walk to work. Yeah. It might seem stupid, but psychologically, you are putting separation in there. Put your headphones on. Yeah. Listen to 5 minutes of a podcast and turn up at work. Yeah. You know, I think there was lots of, the same for me, you know, making sure that you stick into working hours. You know, I was like, whatever it was, 8:30 till 4:30 during COVID. Yeah. It was really important to turn my work computer off at 4:30.
I mean, was that kind of, were you already going into it with that mindset? Because obviously we've gone crisis mode at that point. So lots of people, even though they know to look after themselves, they're just flat out. And, you know, I'm assuming you've already got some previous experience of working at home with what you're doing before the lockdown?
No. I'd never worked at home before.
You went into it like, this is just the same as work. I need to control it.
I think for me personally, I just kind of, I didn't have any of those boundaries in place originally. Yeah. When lockdown started. Yeah. And over the first few weeks, I started thinking, oh, hold on a minute. Yeah.
This could be risky.
It's kind of, because we were having, I was in this room, but the bedroom's only next door. So kind of coming in here and shutting the door, and I'm in a separate place. Yeah. Started to become apparent that was important. Yeah. You know, and I never needed to do the walk around the block thing, but what I did every morning is I went downstairs, I had some breakfast, and I went in, because it was great weather, wasn't it? I went and sat in the backyard, and I had 5 minutes in the backyard, and then I went to work. Yeah. You know, so it just, I think in those early weeks of it, having conversations with people combined with my own experience, I started thinking, hold on. Yeah. There needs to be some separation here.
Ritual. People
some ritual
forget
to it.
the importance of ritual. Like, why did we develop ritual? It's really important to us.
And it was all, there was all that stuff, wasn't there, of like teams organising, catch up for a cuppa on Microsoft Teams. I know there was other organisations,
and
maybe
quizzes and
a little bit more in the private sector of, on a Friday afternoon, 4:30. Everybody who wants a drink, go get yourself a drink. We'll sit on Zoom and we'll have a drink together. Or there was loads of stuff like that developed, wasn't there? And kind of group chats that we never had as colleagues before, because we were having the chats just sat in the office.
And people using things like Slack or, like you say, the Teams chats. But they were around before. Some people would use them, but I mean, people got really used to using them and sort of having them on all day and being able to kind of, just say something quickly like you would an aside to a colleague. Yeah. So,
And that feels, even now that kind of thing at Leeds Mind, our use of kind of, Teams groups really took off as a result of COVID, because it's an easy way. I say to staff now that you can email me, but if it's a quick question, don't email me, because if I'm getting like 200 emails in a day, and you just want to know where the expenses form is, that there's a chance I'm not going to see that.
Yeah.
But if you just Teams me, I'll just answer it straight away.
Yeah.
And that feels like that was never the case pre-COVID.
Yeah. Everything was too formalised.
Yeah.
What was I going to say to you? Well, we asked about the sort of separation. So, coming out then, what do you think? I mean, obviously, there's those changes that you've mentioned there. I think as well might be an interesting area, because obviously there's a lot of accessibility stuff with the tech stuff, the online stuff. But then, of course, you've also got digital divide, and you've got technophobia, and people are like... And people are scared of online, like a lot of people are very kind of paranoid about where it goes, how it works, what's happening. So how was all of that? Or how is it now even?
I think, there still feels like there's some of that kind of divide there. We run an older people's befriending service, so we've been doing some work with the council about getting some loan tablets to do some, getting people online as part of that project, and I still think there's people out there for whom, that what they have is a landline, so the only way to contact them is a landline. And that's fine, we still kind of, will say that I've just been chatting to the befriending team this morning about our post-service feedback form. We can still print it out and post it to people, because for some people they're not going to be able to fill in an online form, and we don't want to miss out on those people's point of view. I think coming out of COVID, that some of the issues were around. I think there's a generation of, because at the time when I first started this job, which was 2022 maybe, 2022, I was working, one of the projects I managed was with young people. So it feels like there's a generation of young people that missed out on part of their development.
Oh, yeah.
So some of that, the going out with your mates and getting into mischief and all that sort of stuff as a teenager didn't happen. Yeah. I think the events industry is feeling the pressure of that.
Yeah.
In that...
And hospitality in general,
definitely, that they didn't kind of, that they've not got into going to clubs and bars and gigs and things, because the time at which they were going to get into it was the COVID time. I think there's a lot of young people whose kind of anxiety levels since COVID are increased, maybe increasing social anxiety type stuff, maybe a little bit more body image stuff, because you're
just online all day,
you're just
looking
online,
at, looking at beauticious images, and everyone being fabulous.
And that, I know we spoke in advance a little bit about kind of social media, and I'm not going to for a moment suggest everything's bad about social media, because there's definitely some good stuff we can talk about, but I think lots of people only post pictures on social media of them looking at their best or of them on a beautiful holiday, and it's really easy to lose sight of that and kind of think, well, how come everybody else has got a perfect life and I haven't got a perfect life? There's not a lot of men share that they're having a rubbish day on social media. So I think, that it's very easy to kind of be tricked by that.
Yeah.
However, I think there's some really brilliant sides to social media, you know, that it's a really great way to stay in touch with people, even if you're struggling. You know, we did some work with a lady who I think was in her 70s, who we got set up on Facebook, and she found some school friends. Nice. Now, that would never have happened without Facebook. You know, and as I say, that you know that there's two sides to most things, isn't you know. That you look at the kind of I was reading some stuff yesterday around sort of online trolling. You know, it's kind of stuff that people wouldn't do in the real world. Because, you know, it's kind of multiple steps away from the person that you're trolling, aren't you, you know?
Well, I remember, I won't mention the book, but I remember years ago, it was a thing talking about cheating, and it's the sort of thing of, like, how far removed you are from it.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, why did some banker or whatever steal someone's pension pot? And it's like, because it's not people.
It's not a real person's pension
it's like
pot. It's a pension
all
pot.
those hundreds of thousands of people that are really affected, they're not real. They're too big. And it's like that thing of, you know, like we can't comprehend these huge kind of so many people in pain and suffering. But if we see one person, we can identify with it much easier. So we'll go from there into, she's definitely trying to get on.
She's definitely trying to get on.
So we'll go from there into social media then, because it's a sensible slide. So, again, what I'm interested for this, feel free again to talk about whatever, but I want to see if the amount of time that you have to spend on social media for your work, and I think I know the answer to this, but is that a valuable use of your time, and do you get, I talk about in return of time investment, do you get, you know, is it a good return on that time?
I suppose the stuff that I do on social media directly for my role, you know, because we have, you know, there's a marketing and comms team that will do some of the general stuff, but I might repost kind of posters we have for courses, we're running that sort of stuff. And I think it's interesting, isn't it, you know, that is very dependent on who my friendship group is. So I know if I put a post on and it's got details of a kind of training around self-harm for frontline staff, put that on my personal Facebook account, I know that a load of people will share it, because what I know is the people I'm friends with are likely to think that's a good idea. You know? So there's that kind of the positive aspect of an echo chamber sort of thing, you know. So it feels like it's quite productive. Now, it's interesting thinking about that the peer support training offer. So, you know, what we want is organisations who are interested in us training them to use peer support lived experience in their work. We can put loads of posts like that about that on Facebook, but chances are it's not going to reach the decision makers. So it then becomes a less useful time-wise, you know. So I think it's really important to look at what you're trying to achieve with the posts that we're doing, and making that judgment call that some of it isn't going to be productive. You know, and you know, you've got to look at, is LinkedIn better? A better option for this, whereas Facebook's a better option when we're looking for people to attend, you know, a self-harm training course or a managing anxiety course, that sort of thing, really.
Unless you've, you know, obviously LinkedIn, you can do something where it's more synergized, for want of a better word, but you know, like where you team up with other accounts more, because you're looking to hit decision makers and things like that, and budget holders and like HR heads and all of those, where you're like, these are the kind of things that you should be thinking about.
Interesting with my coaching, a lot of the stuff I do with my coaching is kind of social media, you know, on Instagram and on Facebook mostly, because of that coaching in nature element. I'll take a lot of photographs when I'm out, you know, working with people, because it's often really beautiful, you know. And then so I've had multiple kind of potential clients come to me because they've seen photographs I've posted about me having just been somewhere doing some coaching, and that's kind of triggered in them something like, well, what coaching why he's in a forest, how can he be doing coaching there? But then the other side of it as well is that there's a couple of clients I've worked with. There's a guy I'm working with at the moment who we're doing some coaching around agoraphobia, and we take photographs, and he's up for me posting them of the big goal points, you know. So this is Tom outside Tesco, where he's just been and bought a birthday cake for his little boy, you know, things like that. And then what that creates is, there's that, you know, that people see the work I'm doing, but also there's often feedback I can pass back to him, you know, of saying there's loads of people are blown away by your progress, you know, and that feels really nice.
Gamification as well.
He's not on social media,
you
know, so his partner is, but he's not, you know, that, and it just feels kind of quite nice to be able to feed back to him that people's comments about his progress, you know, including other people I've worked with previously with similar issues, you know.
I mean, it's but it's being cheered on, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's encouragement, and that's always good to hear. Because you know, you do it. If I'm thinking of athletes, and I'm thinking of that, you know, you're always racing yourself, kind of thing, and that's true to a degree. But you're also racing for the crowd, for the public, you know, this is why you want supporters. This is why people want their parents to turn up to things, because it's like, I'm doing it to impress myself, but I'm doing it to impress you as well.
Please scream and shout.
Please acknowledge that I'm doing this and cheer me on. And it's
and I think, you know, from an organisation point of view, that some of that engagement in social media, that I think we've been doing some work in the befriending team recently, that the team, because we have volunteers, and then there's 3 staff members as well, 2 of which do most of the befriending. I've recently got those 2 to do kind of vlogs, like a day in the life vlog, because what we've found as well is that we get a little bit more engagement with visual stuff, you know, so we can put like a case study, all text up on Facebook, and it might get a few likes, but if you put a video recording of somebody talking about their experiences of social,
it travels so much farther.
It has more of an impact. Same with, like, you know, getting the 2 staff to do these vlogs, and they've both done it in totally different ways, but both hit really well, you know.
And plus, if you can get people doing that themselves, you're also up in their technical skills in some cases, building confidence and potentially opening up new career opportunities for people, and like new it's and it's very easy to get lost in the bad side of social media, and especially when you're sort of scrolling through stuff. Looking at the feed.
Undoubtedly, you know, it's a world of kind of trolls and unhelpful extreme opinions and all that sort of stuff. But you're right, it'd be really easy to just focus on that. But the reality is, for some people, social media is brilliant. You know, because it does open up what, because as a result of the situation they're in, is a really limited world. You know.
But and I think as well, the kind of next, not always, but I think for myself, I am thinking that the next step is then more real world stuff as well. And especially if you can connect it up where, you know, you've got a group of people in the real world here, they're connecting with a group of real world people over there. They share best practices, they share mistakes, and they kind of encourage each other or compete with each other, or, you know, you're getting those interactions, and then you're making things happen. And that's what, and I think a lot of the, you know, when you think of isolation, you think of loneliness, a lot of it is about, it's atrophying. It's like you're doing less and less stuff. You know, there's less and less activity, and it's this kind of slow closing down and shutting off and closing away. And it's like, no, you need sunlight, you need water, you need to be like, you know, and you need love and you know, interaction. You need these things to be a person. This is how we function. Yeah. So anything else on social media?
I don't think so.
I mean, in terms of getting clients for the coaching side, do you have to advertise for that much? Is it very much word of mouth, or is it?
It's a bit. I don't really advertise. Well, I don't advertise at all. I do a few social media posts. So I think most of my clients come through. There's a little bit of word of mouth, a bit of stuff from social media, and a bit of, I think, the particular sort of the particular information I've got on my website, I think appeals to people. You know, so I on my website, I'm really open about my own journey.
Yeah.
I hate that word, journey. Can't believe I said it. You know, I talk about my own kind of recovery. I talk about the coaching in nature, and I guess for lots of people that makes it stand out as something different. You know, the idea of kind of doing the coaching while walking through woodland for lots of people feels really appealing.
Yeah,
I think, you know, because I only do the coaching a couple of days a week, my capacity to take people on is limited. But although that said, I've got, I think, twice as many people I'm working with than I've ever had before, you know, so it kind of there's obviously momentum sort of builds, you know.
People recommend, don't they?
Yeah.
You know, once you've got a good amount of people, and especially if they've got value from it. I mean, they just want to tell everyone, don't they?
Yeah, I think I do some work with a local charity that I won't name, that, you know, that I'm on part of their staff support offer, and I think that there's definitely recommendation going on there. You know, people will talk about, I'm feeling a bit wobbly about this, and somebody else will say, well, I accessed through the staff support this coach, you know. So there's been a series of them, you know, those people that kind of recommending each other, you know.
Yeah, good. So, that's nice.
And I always, you know, I try and kind of ask for people to, you know, give a little bit of feedback, because you've got to be confident in it, haven't you?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it makes me think of the story of Ricky Gervais making extras, and he's got Robert De Niro there, and he's like giving direction to someone else, and like, oh, you need to be more like this, and you need to be more like that, and Robert De Niro sat there, and he's like, am I okay? Am I doing all right? He's like, you're Robert De Niro. It's like, but he still needs feedback. He still needs to know if he's giving you what you need. Yeah. So the other thing that I want to ask about, so on the CIC energy side, social media wise for that, is that largely, because I would imagine that's kind of like big promotion event feedback, big promotion event feedback.
Yeah, we do lots of kind of, because it's mostly event stuff that we do, you know. So, you know, running a bike powered stage at a festival, we do a couple of different festivals each year, and then we do kind of events more locally. So just making sure that we kind of we're on it with taking photographs and kind of, you know, getting little video clips and posting about that, and you know, that often, you know, if you post a video about, I mean, you know, like we did a festival in June up in Dumfries that we do every year called Eden Festival, that we run one of the stages. So making sure that we're doing loads of recording video clips, so we can put a kind of film out at the end of it of like, this is what we do at a festival. And, you know, essentially what comes across is, because it'll have nice music playing, lots of people with big smiling faces dancing away. It always looks great. It always looks great, you know. And then, you know, we'll kind of, when we do the events that aren't bike powered, we'll kind of make sure, you know, there's always kind of photographs taken and things like that. You know?
Have you got a YouTube channel for that?
We don't have a YouTube channel. They all tend to stick on. I don't think we've got a YouTube channel.
World's second biggest search engine still.
Yeah.
So, no, I think I've covered that. So, okay, well, this is a nice segue into climate change. Again, this is like, how does it affect your work? And people can take this in different ways. So a lot of people will talk about, you know, their own kind of ways that they're trying to reduce impact and so on. A lot of people sometimes don't know that they've already done stuff. Like, you know, they've given up their commute or whatever, and they're like, I don't really think about it. It's like, yeah, but you've just saved X amount of carbon because you don't drive to work every day, or you don't, you know, you're not on the bus. So, how does, I mean, obviously you're aware, given what you're doing, and it's something that's important to you. How does it interact with the work? I mean, obviously, talk about the CIC again, but as well with the other roles, how does that kind of interact?
I think, as you say, you know, there's a big thing about kind of, you know, the sort of working locally and working from home has an impact, obviously. I think one of the big things for me is that for lots of the people, certainly at Leeds Mind and with some of the coaching as well, there's a more and more, there seems like there's this kind of existential dread for people, and that kind of, you know, feeds into anxiety, social phobia, agoraphobia, low mood, all that sort of stuff, you know, that especially for young people, because young people are essentially in a world where, you know, with the older people have kind of had a good stab at destroying the planet for them. We've had a good stab at stopping them being able to go and work in Europe and be part of a bigger
and work
community.
in general.
And working in general. And that, you know, that kind of put in that as well, COVID and what happened with COVID, it just feels like, you know, people's outlook for the future seems a lot more bleaker than it was. I mean, I grew up in kind of, you know, Liverpool in the 70s and 80s, so the outlook was quite bleak. But it was kind of geographically quite bleak. You know, the world seemed like a big kind of hopeful place. Liverpool
there were
was being
opportunities in the world, but there were no opportunities on your doorstep. And now it seems like there's no opportunities. To a lot of people.
And it kind of, you know, I can't imagine what it must feel like to be, I don't know, sort of 17, and you're hearing people talking about within 50 years, we're going to start to see some really negative impacts of climate change, because that's well within their lifetime, you know. Whereas for me, that chances of me seeing that are limited at best. Well, you know what I mean? And we already are seeing, you know, differences, aren't we? And I know as someone who kind of, we grow stuff in the garden, I have an allotment, you know, there's definitely things are different. You know, last year was the first year I've ever, on my allotment, had a year where everything died because it got too dry. You know?
And then equally, if it's too wet.
In the year before, everything died because the slugs were too bad. You know what I mean? You know, it feels like that those sort of extremes are kind of getting worse. So I think there's that sort of in the moment noticing of stuff. But yeah, for lots of people, that if you're trying to recover from anxiety, and it's a general sense of anxiety, the world's not, you know, it's a really challenging place to be, isn't it, the world at the moment?
It's that thing as well of, it's the, you know, again, powerlessness of like, what can I do? And then it's because there is a difference of people who, if you work in the problem, you know, and you're working on it, like you're working the problem, you're not powerless. You're contributing. You're being proactive, and you're tackling it, and you're getting new ideas, and you're learning, and you're taking it on. But it feels really difficult because it's in that world where, well, you've got to make money. How are you going to pay for it? Where does the capital come in? And it's like, I don't know. I don't, like, even though it would improve all of us to restore this river or to restore this forest, and that would benefit us all in a way off balance sheet that we can't even calculate. It's like absolutely priceless, but we can't get anyone to pay for it. But we could get all the money to rip it down, destroy it, poison it all, and leave it like that. And it's like, well, how do you? That seems like an intractable problem. I was like, but the people are doing stuff. People are, and then that sometimes gets turned into like, oh, well, it's just greenwashing. They're just lying, and it's like, no, but the people. Not all of it's cynical. A lot of it is cynical. And a lot of it is realism as well, of like, the market has changed. And if everybody else is doing this, and there's no sort of, you know, there's that race to the bottom sort of element of it. Like, you can't compete on that. You've got to cut costs. You've got to be more ruthless. So, And
it feels, you know, that kind of, with the sort of bike-powered stuff we do, you know, where we'll go and do a stage at a festival, you know, that we'll be kind of fully bike powered. Well, we do a bit of bike power and a bit of solar power, but it's all kind of totally off grid what we do. But then, you know, festivals can be a real issue, you know, in that there's a lot of kind of, at the bigger festivals, there's a lot of energy consumption. There's a lot of people turning up in cars,
and your different scopes. Exactly. People travelling to it, how far they've come, and and
it feels like that industry, you know, maybe because it's an industry that post-COVID is really, really struggling. You know, your priority isn't, unfortunately, in making the event more green, because at the moment that will probably turn out to be more expensive, you know?
And And people forget that underlying it all of like, oh, the prices have all gone up, but it's like, it's the energy prices, and that affects everybody because that's your baseline.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I talk to people who, through the inflation, it's like, when do you put your prices up, and how often do you put your prices up? Because you're going to lose customers, you're impacting them, and people reduce their spend, and it's really difficult to navigate. You can't, you know, unless you're a big energy company, you're just like, well, I've locked it, my customers are locked in anyway, so I can just put them up to whatever. But it's really difficult for other businesses to be like, well, I've got to cover these overheads, but then at the same time, who's going to spend that on this? And like, what's their expenditure like? And and they're not even acknowledging the problem. It seems like very difficult. But I won't go too far down that. I think I've already ranted about that too much. So let's bring it back around to, I'm trying to think what the other one is. Social media, COVID, climate change, Brexit. How can I forget Brexit? I think we've all tried to forget Brexit. So Brexit was around about the same time as lockdown. For some people, you can't really pull it apart from anything. Has it changed anything for you work-wise?
I think not necessarily directly. However, I think it's another one of those things that there's a noticeable change in the impact on people. So we spoke before about that kind of the opportunity to go off and kind of travel around Europe or work around Europe has very much changed now. But also there's a thing, I think there's been a consequence since Brexit of an emboldening of the kind of quite extreme points of view in either direction. And I think for lots of those people who are subject to discrimination or affected by health inequality type stuff, the extreme points of view are vocalised a lot more. So like online abuse and abuse out in public, kind of increase in what the kind of the numbers show is things like hate crime is increased, and that kind of, it feels like some of the rhetoric that was used in the selling of Brexit has kind of emboldened that point of view, so that feels quite negative. Whether you look at financial impacts or any of that practical stuff, it just feels like from a person-centered point of view. The feedback I've certainly had is that things like kind of sort of homophobic or racist abuse has kind of has gone up.
Misogyny,
and the result of that is that people's mental health struggles. People's mental health. Well,
and it doesn't have to be directly to them. If if someone in your family gets attacked, and that makes you feel, that impacts how you see the world. And if depending on how well you curate your feed and look after yourself, you're having all these messages beamed into you that are about giving you the most outrage, giving you the most fear, getting the biggest, fastest reaction to keep you on device and so on. And that changes the perception as well. And because these narratives have been very, growing up thinking back to the news, when we were younger, it was very much like you would get 6 o'clock news, 9 o'clock news, you'd get a bit of Newsnight maybe, and that was it. And you didn't have to do all of this. And then if something major happened, you got a breaking news bit, and it'd be so long. And now you've got 24-hour everywhere news. You walk into businesses, and they're beaming the BBC news at you, and it's like, do I need this? Do I need to know this? And it feels so invasive, and it feels like quite inescapable. It is, turn it off. But when they are putting it everywhere in the street, you're also kind of like, well, I don't want to go to these places. It's difficult.
From a purely personal point of view, and not in any way speaking on behalf of Leeds Mind, I still consider myself European. I'm still European. But then I've always considered myself British as opposed to English, and it kind of, I think that being part of Europe has kind of added way more to us than has taken away from a purely going back to the Leeds Mind work. it feels like a lot of funding I've had in jobs where I've worked for charities over the years has been European Social Fund money. And that's gone. That's gone. It hasn't been replaced, you know.
Look at the rivers.
Yeah.
There's a great example, like, into the 90s, you know, the sort of, if you think of the Peter Kay, top of the tower, of Blackpool's had a lot of shit over the years. I don't mean like that. But we're back there.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, we don't have to be.
Yeah.
But we are. And it is that sort of thing of like, you did see, okay, lots of the 90s was the building out of the web, and there was real work happening, and there was real like production happening, and real money being generated, wealth being generated. So that played a part in actually making things a bit nicer.
Yeah.
But it did make things a bit nicer, and like more sort of sitting outside, more cafe culture, more wine. I remember in the 80s, wine was like Blue Nun, Leaf Flower Milk, and Black Tower.
Yeah.
Now you've got all the wine, and it's so it's good and bad. We didn't have all these craft beers. We didn't have all the Belgian beers and the So it does bring things, and you do lose things when you take that away.
Yeah,
we might cut this bit. But it is.
It's a self.
But it is that. And people don't appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, well, you wouldn't be eating a fancy pesto sandwich with sun-dried tomatoes and this, that, and the other. You'd be, having a frayed Bentos pie. So I'm going to move us on. We've got 10 minutes.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm going to move us on to the change question. So again, answer how you want. You can pick as many roles as you want, but 3 changes. You don't have to use all 3. They don't have to be practical. You can be totally idealistic. So answer how you wish. But if you could change any 3 things about your work, what would you change?
I think, let me think. So from a Leeds Mind job point of view, I think, that loads of the work we do is out in communities, and, we have a beautiful office in Horsforth, a great office in Kirkstall, but what I think it'd be great to have, like, somewhere centrally, a kind of huge, great, Leeds Mind wellbeing hub that had, loads of great one-to-one rooms and group rooms and perfect temperature controlled spaces for the staff, and like a shop front for people who are kind of walking past and just want information about Leeds Mind. Obviously we'd need a huge kind of benefactor for that sort of thing. So that'd be great. I think there's a thing about funding for me, because over the years the nature of the funding that has been available for the lived experience peer support projects that we run has meant that it's often quite short term, so maybe 12 months at a time. And if we get 12 months funding, we do some great work in that time, don't get me wrong, and we'll absolutely make the most of it and work with people the best we possibly can. But I think there's a consequence to that, in that projects come and go as a result. So if you can't find more funding for that project, the project comes to an end, whether it's been brilliant or not. I think, from a purely personal point of view, long term, there's a risk of trauma there as well, because what you get is, with 12 months funding, you get 6 months of great, this is brilliant, and then 6 months of, we're doing brilliant work, but am I going to lose my job in 6 months? And that kind of long term isn't helpful for people, really.
And like you were saying about service fatigue as well, like if you've got people on a thing that's like, oh, this is really helping me, this is brilliant, it's changing my life, and then it ends.
And what one of the, when we're working on short-term projects, I'll talk to staff a lot about that is a frustration for staff, and it's a frustration for the people we support. However, I'm confident that the way we provide the support is at such high level quality that we can make a difference to people in that time, even though it is shorter term than we'd like it to be. Take our befriending service, that what we can do in 6 months is astonishing, really. And it's about the model that we use. It's about that, using that lived experience and actually listening to people, and not making promises that we can't keep, and being reliable and all that sort of stuff. That you know, that the trauma people have had, and the kind of service fatigue for people isn't about the services themselves. It's about kind of broken promises and not being listened to and that sort of stuff. So, you know, as I say, I'll talk to staff a lot about, even though it's not ideal, we can still make a difference in that time. Because even for that, you know, we have people we support who would have us there 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. But we can't do that. What we can do for that hour is properly be engaged and in the moment, and absolutely listen to them and really try and pick up on what's going on for them. And, you know, treat them as a kind of individual who matters and who's important, you know.
Do you find that you probably have seen this, but do you find that it's kind of a route in some ways for some people of like, they access the service, it does good for them, they've got that benefit, they know how that works, and then they're kind of like, they take on like development roles, and then they get some work experience, and then again you're opening up.
I think that there's multiple post-service benefits really, because you know there is all that sort of stuff, but I think there's also this thing that what we can show people, because we get people come to us who've had loads of really negative experiences in trying to access support, and if we can kind of, you know, at the end of our work with them, get them to see that it is possible to find services that will do the things that, you know, are really helpful. That's what really makes the big difference, because it means that then they, rather than saying I'll never reach out for support because all the support is going to be disappointing, if they can then see actually some support's disappointing, so what I can now do is, armed with that, is I can go out and find the support that's going to be really helpful for me. You know?
And you know, some services are better than others, and that doesn't necessarily translate nationally. It's about the people. Again, it's people, and it's like some people with no resources are doing amazing stuff. Some people with all the resources are doing amazing stuff, and vice versa. You know, they've got all the resources and they do hardly anything. And there are people who've got no resources and they can't do anything. And it's it's the people, it's the skills, it's the knowledge. It's, you know, what have you got? What are you using? How can you leverage it? How can you build it out and expand it and make it? Not even if you can't make it financially sustainable, you can make it sustainable for the person in terms of like toolkits or practices or things like that, of like your own experience in recovery, of like learning things and learning to be aware of triggers and other things that, you know, like early warning of like, my body's telling me this, I need to start paying attention to it, and all those kind of things. And if you can give people those skills and that knowledge, you don't need to have to keep funding. It's like they give them an efficient.
You know, there's almost, you know, part of the role as like a coach or a peer support worker or an employment support worker is, you know, that from the very first day, part of your role is to make yourself not needed. You know, and I just feel if you go into it with that attitude, you know, that what you're trying to build is independence and empowerment and all that sort of stuff, I think that just makes a difference to people, because people aren't idiots. You know, people can see what you're doing with them.
They're just overwhelmed.
And if you're doing, you know, we as I said before, we don't do support at people. We do support with them. And it sounds quite cheesy, but that's the reality of it. Important. You know, that's what, you know, what we find has real power with people. You know.
Because people want to do it for themselves. It's not worth anything if someone comes in and solves the problem for you. What have you learned? What have you done? We want to feel that we've done stuff.
Definitely,
Like, I did that. That's, you know, it's something that you can feel proud of. I went from this to this. So that's a really good change. Have you got any other ones that you want to throw in?
So what we're on to, let's think. Let's go with, it would be great is if all festivals in the UK used the idea that you can run really great sound systems by people power alone as a model for going forward. It would make the whole festival industry a lot more environmentally sustainable.
I mean, for myself, I would be like, you know, I don't pick your band, but, you know, massive band. I went to see them, but not only that, I powered their entire show. Amazing.
You know, when we do stuff, you know, that we kind of do festivals or dances and we power them, you know, as somebody who's playing records at that, you know, that dance, it adds a great element, because, you know, your responsibility when you're DJing is to get people dancing. But then if you add in also your responsibility is to get people pedaling on the bike. Yeah. Because if they pedal harder, the people dancing get more excited. You can turn the volume up and everybody gets more excited. It becomes like this infinite feedback loop, you know.
Well, that's the energy. Years and years ago, this friend of mine, who was a sort of, you know, he was a big clubber, and he was like, if you could capture that, you know, like pressure pads on the dance floor, and you could capture that energy from like the people dancing and feed that back in. Yeah. It's like, you know, there's loads of opportunity, but it's the engineering, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the, again, expense and resources.
It's a shame all the sprung dance floors and the old traditional venues got ditched, because maybe they could be adapted to be to generate electricity.
It's Anyway, lots of things to think about there. Yeah. So UBI, are you familiar with Universal Basic Income?
Yeah.
I assumed you would be.
Yeah.
How do you think it would change your work?
I think, you know, we mentioned it earlier, that kind of health inequality stuff. So, you know, some of the work we do around health inequality is about areas of deprivation, you know. So I think what Universal Basic Income has the potential to do is to give people a baseline that means their access is different. You know, I find it very hard that people's kind of access to the support you need is damaged by their financial situation. You know, you've got to make choices about, do I kind of, you know, do something that's good for my well-being, or do I pay the gas bill?
Heating and eating,
Yeah, that feels kind of, you know, and people get stuck in a trap, don't they, in poverty of like, they can't, you know, the perception that they can't afford to have healthy food.
It's really expensive,
so then,
being
poor.
You
know, it kind of then, everybody's got an opinion about whether you've got a nice telly or not.
Yeah.
I just think it kind of opens the world up for people a little bit more, for me.
Yeah. I mean, if you think of it in terms of, it wouldn't... So you said earlier, the point is to make yourself kind of redundant. You said it differently,
yeah.
So in terms of the charity landscape, I think some would go, but I think some will always be needed. But like, what do you think your take is on that? Do you think it's not going to alleviate your need to be there, is it, in terms of the work that you're doing?
No, I don't think, as long as there's a kind of funding environment and a fundraising environment, you know, and at Leeds Mind, you know, I think we're really blessed to have a really great fundraising team that, you know, support a huge amount of kind of really diverse fundraising opportunities. You know, that I think there's still work for charities to do. There's still kind of people in need, and even having, you know, universal basic income, that doesn't solve anything. No. It just kind of sets some, you know, those sort of foundations.
Takes the pressure
for
off.
More people. You know, I think, you know, going forward, certainly for Leeds Mind, you know, I think more engagement from the corporate world. You know, more social responsibility stuff. You know, more kind of partnerships with the corporate world in terms of donations and that sort of stuff. That could happen regardless of what the funding environment is. And you know, and I think, you know, maybe, you know, to mentioning back of those changes thing as well. You know, that for us that unrestricted income is the key in lots of ways, because with unrestricted income you can decide where the greatest need is and do that work. Whereas with, you know, often grant funding will say you need to work with these sort of people in this sort of way, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point as well. I'll leave that there. So yeah, that's all my questions. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to shout out anything, talk about anything that you want to talk about. But before I do that, if you remember your socials, do you want to give us those while you think about that?
Okay, so if you want to find Leeds Mind, you can search for Leeds Mind on Facebook, Instagram, maybe Twitter as well.
Yeah, you're still on Twitter.
I'm not sure. For my coaching business, that's Emlyn Hagan Coaching and Change on Facebook and Instagram. And then for the sort of bike-powered energy stuff, that's Grassroots Events Leeds on Facebook, and the website is www.bike-power.co.uk.
And that's for people if they want to find out about any of those things and or donate and or anything else. So is there anything else that you want to sort of big up or shout about before we...
I suppose that, I guess where certainly the projects I manage are looking for kind of help from the public. Certainly the befriending service. We're always looking for volunteers, for people based in Leeds who fancy doing a bit of befriending with.
Do they need any qualifications or anything?
No, not really. No.
But they get training and
they get
support?
training. They get full training. They go through there's like an interview process, and it's it's a really kind of kind, supportive interview process. It's not high pressure questions and things like that.
Do they need a DBS?
And, they'll need a DBS, and they'll go through training. And what we ask for people is a minimum of 3 months commitment. And a couple of hours a week plus travel, so you can have 2 clients on the go. And it's generally, as volunteering goes, I think is that for lots of people the idea of befriending volunteering is one of the most appealing, because essentially what you're doing is just you're developing a relationship with somebody older, and that might be sitting and having a home baked bit of cake and a cup of tea, or going for a walk in the park, or going to Tropical World, or to the gallery, that sort of stuff. So that people can reach out to us through the Leeds Mind website. Just Google Leeds Mind. In terms of the peer support training service, so I think for me, any sort of organisations who are looking to use kind of lived experience in the support they're providing, and that, as I say, that can be kind of staff support in the clients of the service, volunteers supporting people or each other, peer mentors, so students who are supporting each other on a one-to-one basis, anything like that. Mental health first aiders in the workplace. We can support organisations to set up those peer-led groups and kind of develop the skills and understanding to kind of work in that sort of way. That can be found by emailing training@leedsmind.org.uk.
Excellent. So I think unless there's anything else that you want to add.
I don't think so.
Okay, brilliant. So thank you very much for your time today, and it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you again to Emlyn for being my guest. Thanks as always to all my guests, and thank you to you, Leeds, for being my subject. If you've not subbed on the YouTubes, please do it now, please, because it's on 19 still, and I still hate that. I still hate it. I hate it. Let's change it, please. Let's hit 20. If you would like to follow Leeds Mind, Instagram.com/Leeds Mind, Facebook.com/Leeds Mind. And if you want to follow Emlyn Hagan Coaching and Change or find out more about them, go to Facebook.com/Emlyn Hagan Coaching or Instagram.com/Emlyn_Hagan. If you'd like to contact me about anything working hours related, then you can email the show at workinghourspod@western-studios.com. Okay, that's me. Remember, listener, no matter what you do, it is impossible for you to understand anything that your salary depends on you not understanding. So try to work for peace and try to plan with kindness. Raise your voice, but reduce your impact. Cheers, ears. Take care out there and be kind to each other, Leeds. Working Hours is produced, recorded, edited, created and published by Simon Treen for Western Studios Leeds Limited. The music was The Bees from Chopin's Etudes, which is in the public domain and was taken from museopen.org. Remember Western Studios Leeds Limited when you're ready to start making your content in West Yorkshire. Follow Western Studios Leeds on Facebook, facebook.com/Western_Studios_Leeds, and on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/company/Western-Studios. Bookmark western-studios.com so you can see the latest prices and use my contact page to drop me a message about your own podcast project or working hours at any time from anywhere. Maybe you want or need a podcast host, co-host or narrator for your podcast project. Maybe you just need another voice for one or more episodes of your show. Podcasts are so much more than gossip book promotions, and marketing for online courses. Podcasts and other audio content get your online brand out there. Want to make some fundraising case studies? Want to have an audiobook or video course? Want to share your learning, knowledge, and expertise in your field? Want to learn, teach, or raise awareness of something general or particular? Want to improve internal comms with messages your staff might actually engage with? Or do you just want to brighten up the world with some entertaining content? Then make a podcast. If you're making your podcast within West Yorkshire, then think about making it with western-studios.com. Whatever your podcast questions or needs, get in touch with Western Studios Leeds.